and I'm the Clarinet professor at Texas A&M University, Kingsville. And I really am honored to be here to present these etudes for you. I selected them with the judges in mind. Because you may be tired of hearing the same etudes over and over. So these are different. I think that they are challenging, but I think they're very attainable for your younger students as long as you use the wide range of tempi that I selected. Have your younger, less experienced students do the slower tempi because that's in the range, and then that way in area it'll be very clear cut. You won't have so many shades of gray. Now, if you did not receive a handout, this is the old-fashioned hard copy. I will be happy to email it to you. My email address is right there. And so I'll play through the etude first, the one that's on page 75, number 30. And there is one errata measure, and that's measure 44. And I wrote out what the correct notes are supposed to be on your handout on page 1. Now, I put some tips in there for working on this etude. The first thing you probably noticed, I didn't take all the breath marks. But if your students need it, that's fine. You can just put a short little break in there and use all the indicated breath marks. You have a really wide range of dynamics there at the beginning, so I think the impression is you're supposed to play the whole thing piano, the whole thing mezzo piano, mezzo forte. Well, obviously you're not going to be able to do that at tryouts. So I just selected a mezzo forte dynamic, but then you can shape the phrases with some crescendos and decrescendos. It stays pretty much B major throughout the whole etude, so I put the scale there. And it would be really good, if your students were real familiar with that scale, and that will help them to learn this etude. And on the very last page of your handout, I included my recommendations for left and right teams on this particular handout. Now, if you have some students that have the festival model buffet, then they're not going to have to do all these things. They may select a different right-left scenario, and that's fine because they have that extra G sharp, D sharp, A flat, E flat key on the left. But I myself have a regular buffet R13, and so I don't have that extra key. And so you're welcome to use my left and right recommendations. There are a few spots where you have the E sharps, and so sometimes you need to flip and sometimes you don't. And so I tried to mark that in as well. Sometimes you need to use the chromatic F sharp, and sometimes you need, to use the middle finger because of the note after. So I indicated that in the music there and on your handout. The other thing is, I think it's a really good idea to practice the etude extremely slowly with the metronome, slur, because that will ensure that your air is steady, and that will also make certain that your fingers are coordinated. Because even though you're tonguing, it's easy to get finger blips in there. So you might want to start out at maybe 60 or 40, doesn't really matter. And just have your students slur. Just like that, just have them slur the whole thing and make sure they've got it all worked up, and then when they get it correct at that tempo, then they bump it up to 64, then 68. Now, on the second page of your handout, I wrote out some practice rhythms that are examples for complete measure 1 and 2. And I have found these to be very useful through my playing career. I learned them in high school from my piano teacher. And I thought, wow, I wonder if these work on clarinets. So I tried them, and sure enough, they do. I think the reason that all 5 of them work so well is that they kind of force your fingers to move fast when they don't expect it. And so if you do all 5 of them, then you come up with 4 really smooth 16ths or 8ths or 32nds, whatever kind of note value that's all the same. You can use these practice rhythms. So I went ahead and indicated it just for measure 2 and 3, but you could use it throughout different passages. Now, are there any questions? Oh, wait, I forgot to mention one thing. Staccato tongue. There are 2 things about that. Number 1 is if you're going faster, you don't have to get it extremely short to sound short, And the other thing is that I always tongue the same place on the reed and the same place on the tongue. And then when you put your tongue back on the reed determines how long that note is. And so there's a really cool way to teach staccato tonguing. Have your students put their finger between their collarbones, like this, and just have them play an open G. So they can feel their trachea scooped out, okay? And then have them do some regular tonguing. And the air should feel the same as when they were just sustaining. If you want legato, just wait later to put the tongue back on the reed. Staccato. Guess what? The air still felt the same. My trachea didn't go in and out because my air was stopping. And I can tell you that if your students play this with puffs of air instead of steady air, they're going to be exhausted. They're going to maybe have to add extra breath. Every note like that. So that's the way to teach the staccato tonguing. And I don't tongue right on the very tip of my tongue. I tongue a little back, but I do tongue right on the tip of the reed. So it kind of varies from person to person depending on how long their tongue is. But I think that it's real easy to get a crisp staccato if they are close to the tip of the reed. Now, are there any questions on this one before we go on to the next one? All right. So this one is page 14, number 13.